Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. So I have a fabulous guest with us today, Veronica Deraleau. Yes? And she's lots of fun, wonderful things. So she's an opera singer by trade, but she's also a financial coach, which is an interesting combination. She's a veteran, and we're so grateful for her service. She's also an Army spouse, which means that she lives in that space quite well. She's a dog mom to Phil and Minka, who sound like absolutely adorable animals. And she's our guest today on Productive Joy. Veronica, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And we're getting ready to have some fun because we just discussed the fact that if it's not fun, people quit. And it's super important that we have a good time. And people are going to want to know what they're going to gain from this episode, like in 30 seconds or less. So what would you tell them to make sure that they listen to all 30 minutes?
You're going to learn how to stop living paycheck to paycheck and start living your dreams.
Oh my gosh, let's do that right now, quick and in a hurry. So how does one go from opera singer to financial coach? Like that is a pretty wide range of talents there, my friend.
Yes. So I have always had both the business and the music. When I started college, I wanted to be an opera singer, and my mother is very practical, and she said, well, you need to do something else too.
And you're like, thanks, Mom, for believing in me.
Thanks, Mom. So she told me that, and I had taken an economics course in my last year of high school, and I found it fascinating. I've always found the behavioral side of economics super fascinating. And so it happened to be within the same school, so that a lot of the courses overlap. So I figured, okay, I can pack my schedule and graduate on the same timeline and have overlapping courses and then just take the economics and the music. And so that is what I did. I slammed through it in 4 years. I got the dual major, and then I did get a master's in music and then an MBA with a focus in real estate.
Oh, okay. Well, so clearly an underachiever you are. I'm going to guess you were the only one who double majored in those two things, at least in your year. Am I right?
So interestingly enough, I have a very good old friend from college, and she was my roommate, and she kind of did the same thing, but she loved Italian, and her father is extremely practical. And so we both did the economics dual major, and she did Italian and economics. So I guess it's good to have people around you like that are also inspiring.
Yeah, definitely. What is she doing with Italian and economics as a double major?
She is in the business space, like an entrepreneur, and then she goes to Italy frequently.
It's good for her, the food. So my husband and I went for the first time a couple years. Well, I guess it's been a year and a half now. And it was just amazing. So yes, okay, I fully support your friend's idea of how to do life. But let's talk about you. So tell us about the journey that got you to where you are today, because you have recently written a book, and that book will help people figure out how not to live paycheck to paycheck. But there was a journey to get here. So tell us that journey.
Yeah, so it's pretty outlined in the book. The book is very story-based. So it's a short book, so quick read. It's story-based, and you'll get my Aria money model for your money stuck mindset and also my background. So like I said, I wanted to be an opera singer, and in my 20s, I was struggling to make it, sufficient for funding the life that I wanted. I was singing, but it wasn't like enough to live comfortably. And I had also been doing a day job, and they allowed me to be an independent contractor so that I could have a more flexible schedule. But I just felt like dissatisfied with the progression of either. Like I was like, I'm not really moving in a positive way on the business side because I'm kind of half in this and then I'm kind of half in this. And so I was just dissatisfied. And so I decided to do my MBA, and where that left me between the undergrad debt and the then graduate debt was in 6 figures of debt. I felt good about and excited about where I landed. Like I was like, okay, like I will start this real estate journey in that space, a career in that space. But I, at the time, was dating my now husband, Mike, and we wanted to move in together and get married and buy a house and just progress in life. And I felt extremely ashamed that I had all this debt. And because I was pivoting industries, I was kind of like at the bottom rung of that industry too. So I wasn't making that much money. So I figured, okay, then I joined the commercial real estate firm. At that firm, I was managing multi-million dollar property budgets. And I was able to witness, and I was working with high net worth individuals. I was able to witness how they thought about money and how they managed their money was starkly different from how I was managing my money. And I thought because I was using an Excel spreadsheet and because I had these degrees that I knew something about money. And then I came to realize that I had a lot of resentment from childhood. My mother was an immigrant from the Philippines, and I grew up in the days pre-social media, so I didn't understand how differently I lived my life until I really got to high school and college and started to see other people's homes and like how other people had college funded and all these things, and it was just like really mind-blowing. So there was a lot of resentment in my 20s and maybe like entitlement that needed to get dropped. And then when I saw the practical side, working with these high net worth individuals, saw how they were managing money, I just was managing cash flow and there was no strategy with my money. There was no like end goal. There was no how am I going to achieve these things, no working backwards from the goal. So that really was super eye-opening when I started working with them. I was like, wow, they're so forward-looking. In their minds, there's nothing that can't be done. It's just a matter of getting the information, maybe finding the right people to guide you. And so there were a lot of unlocks there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And that I'm sure. Well, and then you turned it into a book so that other people could learn some of those specific things as well, which is pretty cool. So tell us how the book came to be and what we would learn if when we pick it up.
Okay, fabulous. So that was 2017 when I started working with the commercial real estate firm. I was able to figure out how to apply the budgeting to my personal finances, and I was able to pay off my 100K plus of debt in 3 years on a starter salary.
Yeah.
So I just figured out the mechanics of this, and then here we are. Then 2020 hits, COVID hits.
Jeez.
A lot of my artist friends overnight, their contracts are dropped. They're like unemployed. And I felt like I had just done this incredible thing personally. And so I felt super compelled to share that information with other people because I was like, this is crazy. Like, this isn't taught in school. This is so practical. Like, everybody, like, so I just felt super purpose driven to share out this information. And it started very informally. I was doing webinars just for musicians, really, just like within the group of people that I knew. And then we had we got restationed in 2022. So I started a new job in 2020, the end of 2020 with a fintech firm. And then in 2022, we moved. So there was a little bit in between where I just had the idea and was giving these webinars for free, had the idea of coaching and didn't pick it up until after this move. In 2023 was sort of the tail end of COVID. Things were opening back up. I was starting to do auditions in a new location. I was an unknown. So I started working with a music business coach who was a longtime friend of mine from graduate school. And he was able to amazingly put together. So he also had a real estate background and was an opera singer.
Oh my goodness.
I found him. I was like, he's my people. Like, I need to talk to him. How is he doing this? He was able to be his own agent in the music business and get himself opportunities without representation. So I was like, everybody and their mama was flying in from all over the country for any audition possible. And I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to get my foot in the door in this new location. Start working with this coach on the music side. And he was like, you need to put together your business background and your music background. And it was the first time anyone had sort of consolidated those two personalities inside of me.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, just another unlock. And I have a full singing schedule this year. So So it took, a year to get there, but the principles worked. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had been compartmentalizing these two sides of me forever.
Yeah.
Thought that that was like a way to do things, but turns out if I just embrace the totality of me, that it can unlock all these things. So I had lots of learnings with, oh my gosh, I've had, sports coaches, mentors with singing, business mentors. I feel like, wow, this stuff really works. Like coaching really works. And so I had been doing this sort of informally, and it just occurred to me like, I need to do this. I would like to formally do this. I was able to like discover this thing on my own and turn my finances around. And I'd love to share this with others. And coaching I believe in coaching, so I would like to do this.
Well, thank goodness for brilliant people who told you, let's put these things together. I think we frequently compartmentalize our lives and we say, this is what I do at work, and this is what I do at home, and this is what I do with my friends. But our unique genius is a thread that goes through all of that. And the money side and the math side, along with the music, makes perfect sense, right? Because musicians are mathematicians in many ways. And so putting those two together and then becoming who you're supposed to be, and now you're helping other people do it. What a fun full circle moment. So what advice would you have for somebody who's coming along and they haven't put it all together yet and they can't quite figure out what it is that they're supposed to be doing? What would you say to them that might help them unlock their superpowers too?
I would say take stock of your unique talents. Like what is easy for you that is difficult for others? What are some things that maybe people have told you along the way that you're really good at naturally? What is fun for you to do that you would do anyway? Those might be some questions I would start asking myself.
Yeah, definitely. And really cool things could happen from that. But we don't, right? We sit and we think, okay, well, this is what I do. And I show up on Monday morning and somebody tells me what I'm supposed to do next. And the reality is that that's just not the way it works. So how does real estate play into this too? Because that's another facet. And then I want to hear the veteran side because you served our country and there has to be a piece that fits there as well.
Okay, so the real estate side, I really like I like the tangibility of real estate. That was something that was really appealing to me. And so I think that it's difficult for people to turn their lives around if they don't and do the perceived sacrifices that come with turning finances around if they don't understand what the end state will be. So in my coaching, I try to make that super visible and prepare what the end state will be so that it is clear for them to see. And I think that's a lot of what prevents people from taking action is just this unknown state at the end. Like, what is this going to be all for? I feel like immediately what stands in front of me is just like pain and sacrifice and shame. And I don't know what there is to gain. So I like to make that very clear in my coaching.
Nice.
So I think that's something from the real estate, both the mechanics of budgeting, but also what is the end state going to look like?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, how do you hit a target you can't see? And we frequently say, I want to be better or I want success. Well, okay, then what are we defining as success? Because I would argue that our Gen Zs would define success very differently than our Gen Xers, right? And then the millennials are somewhere in between. And we have to honor all of that. We have to recognize that just because I would do it this way and I would call this success doesn't mean that you have to, and vice versa. But we do say, I want to be successful. I want to be rich. I want to be, whatever. Well, let's define that first so that we can hit that target.
Yeah. And I love that because it is so true in the sort of demographic that I've chose to work with, which are rising professionals and creatives.
Yeah.
Because that is my background. But my artist friends and my professional friends have completely different wants, and I think they're all amazing. And so whatever it is that they want their life to look like is what we need to key in on. And there's, no judgment on my end. I think they're both beautiful ways to live. It's just about getting clear on what that end goal looks like.
Because clear is kind, according to my bestie, Brene Brown. She doesn't know she's my bestie, but I do. Okay, I do have a question for you that I think is going to be a really fun answer because of your creative mind and your financial mind and your service mind. If you had to describe productive joy, what would be your description?
I think that it's the type of joy that is not fleeting.
Mm.
It's the joy that's aligned with your purpose.
Wow. I love that. Align with purpose. So, what if I am a 22-year-old and I haven't figured out my purpose yet? How do I find productive joy?
That's a great question. In my 20s, okay, so for those in their 20s, I think sometimes you have to you just have to do different things, try different things, test different things, and find out what you don't like, to be honest, is how you're going to start.
Yeah.
And just by trying out different things, because that's the only way. People think that they're going to figure out things by having it bounce around in their head. That's not it. You have to be out in the world, engaging with people, testing different things, and just experiencing it. Unfortunately, there's no shortcuts. You have to just experience things, and then you find out what you don't like, and then you can key on what you do like. Fortunately, it takes always longer than we think it's going to be, but that is the truth of the matter. If you're in your
100%.
20s, it's all about
100%.
testing and experiencing.
Well, and figuring out, okay, so what actions do I need to take to get to this desired outcome, whatever that desired outcome is. And I think what I appreciated most about what you said is that the being willing to try, right? Like just to not be afraid to step out and say, I'm going to give this a shot. I don't know if it's going to work, but we're going to give it our best go. I think somewhere along the way we're taught that's not a wise move, that you shouldn't pull any triggers until you know that you're going to be successful. And the reality is you're not ever going to be successful if you don't pull a couple triggers incorrectly. I mean, trigger's not maybe the best term, but that's to me what we're doing is we're figuring out what can I attempt and fail at just so that I can learn from that failure, right? And grow.
It super resonates with me. I think for such a long time, I think also, just growing up, I did have a very like I don't know, stereotypical like Asian tiger mom type that expected, had very high standards for me. And so you do learn to be afraid, unfortunately, of making mistakes. And
Mhm.
it's almost like the opposite when you get out into the real world. You need to be able to test, and you need to be able to learn from your tests and pivot quickly. But the real world feedback is what is going to polish is what is going to polish you. You're not going to be able to perfect things in your head. And it's not the right lesson to learn that you should only do things that you are naturally good at.
Mm.
You can lean into those things to have, find out what you're uniquely good at. Sure, you can lean in on those things, but even if you're starting any new endeavor, you should actually expect that you're not going to be good at it for a little while.
But yes, but somehow they wake up, and I say we all wake up and think, I should be really, really good at this. Why? You've never done it before, right? I say this often. I've never been exactly this age before. I've never been 48, almost 49 before. I've never had 24-year-old twins and a new daughter-in-law, right? Who's also 24. These are all new experiences. And yet somehow we're like, and I'm supposed to have it all together. It just doesn't work like it. It's a pretty big misnomer and misunderstanding for sure. I really liked the way you said that, though, that the real world feedback is what polishes you. And yet we're so scared of it sometimes because we perceive it as bad when it's just different.
Right. Yes, I've learned this like way too much. And with singing, there were things that like I stopped myself from joining competitions because I was like, I don't think I'm ready. If I had just done the competition, maybe I would have gotten some critical feedback, and maybe it would have been hard to adjust, but it might have gotten me along my path a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Or it would have identified some of my unique talents faster. So yeah, and then, when you're young too, it can be difficult to sift through feedback and know what to keep and what to kind of toss. But I think when you start to hear the same recurring feedback, it's super helpful. It's a super helpful indicator. So it behooves you to get as much of it as possible.
Right. Then it isn't a one-off, right? We're not listening to one person who said, like one of my favorites, I do a lot of trainings, right? I work a lot with organizations and with educators, and I'd get 99 positive, yay, this was the best thing I've ever done. And one person said there should have been more chocolate on the table. And I'm like holding on to the person that wanted more chocolate instead of focusing on the 99 that really did like what I was doing, right? So that's an important distinguishing factor too, is that you're not just listening to the noise, you're listening to what's recurring over and over. I love that. So I want to back up to something that you said earlier because I think it's important for everybody on this podcast to hear. You got $100,000 worth of debt paid off on a fairly low in standards of life salary, right? So, how do you recommend people do that? Because maybe they're sitting in hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt or even hundreds of dollars worth of debt, depending on where they are. How do you get rid of it?
Yes. So there's sort of the mindset component, which is my Aria money model. And then I have like the tactical side of it, which I have my money simple plan. So on the money mindset side, the Aria money model, the first step is to awaken. That is to just be willing to take a look at it and not be terrified, and take that first brave step in. Hey, I think there might be an issue here that I need to turn it around, and being able to tackle it head on. And it doesn't have to be that you have to figure out yourself, but maybe getting the resources that you need to tackle it. So that's A for awaken. Then R is to reframe. So if there are some scripts that have been going on in your head about, but I deserve this, I should have this, someone my age should be have XYZ things. Is that serving you though? And what do you stand to gain by giving up those common just scripts that are everywhere? And the marketing that's in our faces all day long. Are these things that you even care about? Or are you just sort of mindlessly buying things because your neighbor has it or you saw it on Instagram? So R is for reframing your thoughts and thinking about, okay, is the way that I've been operating serving me, or do I need to shed this and really take stock of what might be holding me back and what I stand to gain by transforming? Then I is for setting clear intentions with your money. What am I trying to accomplish and how can I get there? Then after all of those things, then you take action. But I find that there's just so much friction from the emotional side. Even if people know something's got to give and whatever they're doing is not working, they're constantly just battling their own mind and the expectation, the super high and maybe unrealistic at the moment expectations for themselves, and that are holding them back and not serving them. And honestly, that could it could turn around fairly quickly if they just knew like the tactical portion, but they're just constantly battling their minds and they can't get past that. So that's the money mindset stuff. And then I do a money simple plan where that's another acronym, but basically we start with the end goal in mind, and then we take a look we examine every single line item on their budget, and there's what I like is zero-based budgeting, and there's like income minus expenses and savings investments equals zero. That's just the mathematical. But there's also the corporate definition of zero-based budgeting, which is every year your budget's at zero and you have to justify every expense. So it's critically examining. And really, I, in the book, share that, I grew up in an interesting way. My mother came from the Philippines and never sort of assimilated and wasn't able to observe how people lived here, which is probably for the best, because when I went to my first sleepover at 13, I did not realize that people were using the shower heads. So I did not realize up until that point in life that like a basin bath was not the norm in America.
Okay.
And so I think that a lot of people take things for granted in the Western world that are not taken for granted in the rest of the world. And maybe if they just drop that for like 8 months, not saying that they don't need to shower, that's not the point of this, but it's extreme, and it's an extreme example of things that people hang on to, things that are not serving them, are not getting them to their goal. because they just have these preconceived notions and these stories they've been telling themselves over and over about how they like deserve things, even if it's actively harming them and keeping them from the actual end goal that they want.
Yeah.
So yeah, rewriting the scripts. So we look at every single line item and I ask all sorts of questions, and then I'll make recommendations and show them, hey, this is how I think. I'm pretty like an impatient person with myself. I'm always like, how do I turn it around really fast, really fast? Like, how do I do it really fast? So I try to show them, here's like best case scenario. Here's how quickly I think we can turn it around. And then they can push back and say, okay, let's take, another month or two. And like, I want to keep this. I'm like, that's
You
cool.
just told me I had to get rid of everything, and I'm not willing to do that. Definitely.
But yeah, there's a give and take there, but I'm like, this is what I would do.
Yeah.
If I was you. And here, I think you can pay this off in 12 months. Like, I think you can have a totally different life in less than a year.
Yeah.
So it's painting the picture for them. It's really not taking anything for granted and examining the default operating assumptions that have just come to be taken for granted. And sometimes there's a lot of fluff in there that they don't even care about. Like, no one wants to overpay on insurance, but maybe they never got quotes. It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's not even something they're attached to, and they're just overpaying for no reason. So yeah, we critically examine everything, and then I just try to clearly paint the end goal for them, because then that is what is super motivating. They're like, oh my God, I didn't know this was possible.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's do it. And then the accountability piece is huge too, because they might have questions about, just putting it in place, or, oh, is this the right account? Just tactical questions, but just someone to talk to so they're not in their head and they can get the feedback, and then I can help them with next steps.
Well, people are going to want to find you, Veronica. What's the best way for our listeners to get their hands on your book and get closer to you?
So my book, Making Money is Simple, is available on Amazon, in print, and Kindle as well. They can visit my website, Making Money is Simple, and there's resources there. There's a contact form. And then you can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at Making Money is Simple.
Making money is simple. I like that phrasing, and I like the consistency of it for sure. Well, thank you so much for choosing to share your brilliance with the world, and for also choosing to do that on Productive Joy. This has been an absolute honor. So much fun.
Thank you so much, Dr. Christie.
You're welcome. I do have some rapid fire questions for you, though. Oh, are you ready?
Okay.
I know it sounds a whole lot more stressful than it actually is. First question, because there are no wrong answers. What's your definition of fun?
I like to soak in the sun and curl up with a good book.
What's your favorite genre of book?
I'm kind of a personal development type
Junkie?
junkie.
I do understand. Although I have to throw something mindless in periodically, or I get completely just like, oh my goodness, I need fair right now. Okay, how do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
I feel comfortable saying the uncomfortable thing out loud.
Oh, I like the way you stated that too, saying the uncomfortable. Okay, how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
My husband and I use HALT. Have you heard of this?
I have, but so everybody else, yes.
So I use this frequently. Quick check-in when I'm getting a little cranky is, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? So sometimes I need a snack or a nap.
So Tina Miller was a guest that I had a few months back, and she was the first one to tell us about HALT. And I think it's genius, right? Because we used to say I used to carry a granola bar in my purse at all times for my husband when he would get hangry, which was just, he just needed something to eat, and I can solve that problem. So I love that. So how often do you HALT? Like, is that a daily, oh, well, hold on.
Maybe at least once a week.
Yeah, that sounds about right? Like, we need to pay attention. All right, tough question for our last question. By nature, our brains can only hold on to one major thing. And you've talked about so many wonderful things. You talked about the Aria. I love that. So, awaken, reframe, intentions, and action. You talked about melding your gifts and taking these brilliant things from over here and these brilliant things from over here and putting them together. That joy isn't fleeting when it's productive. You just said some really wonderful things. But by nature, people can only hold on to one major thing in a 30-minute period. So, what's the one thing you really want them to hold on to today?
I want people to take the first brave, messy step in changing their life.
Mm, mm. Gosh. And it sounds like you're right there holding people's hands doing exactly that, which is pretty great. It's a whole lot less scary when we know somebody's next to us when we take that messy step. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for, again, sharing your brilliance with the world and making it so easily accessible that the rest of us can learn from the things that you have learned, which is pretty spectacular. Thanks for being a guest today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yay. And for our listeners, y'all, there are things that you need to be doing differently based on this episode. So I want you to grab onto those nuggets of wisdom. I don't know which one resonated most with you. Maybe you need to rewind and listen again because there were tons of them. And the goal here isn't that you just hear it, but that you actually change practice because of it. So our hope for you is that you figure out a way today to turn fun into action.